Good morning to all the respected colleagues, faculty members, students, distinguished guests, participants present offline and online. On behalf of Homi Baba National Institute, in association of ICC and AIC Anushakti, I warmly welcome all of you for this webinar on building indigenous AI solution for economic and social growth. Before starting about this webinar, introduction of the uh, speakers, I kindly request Professor Naveen Kumar to welcome our today's speaker, Shri Ankush Shah, with the welcome bouquet. नवीन जी वहाँ पे देंगे क्या? हाँ प्लीज फोटो अच्छा नहीं फोटो अच्छा नहीं पीछे लाइट आती है ना वो अच्छा नहीं आ रहा नहीं है अच्छा नहीं मैं तो ये तो आते हैं लोग हर रोज में मेरा फंक्शन होता है जो फंक्शन फोटो नहीं लगा प्लीज मैं अंदर विद्यार्थी वाला पे लाता हूँ स्पेशली लाइट है ना आई रिक्वेस्ट Professor Deepan Mitta Madam to welcome Shri Abhijit for today's talk. This program is being organized as a pre-summit event of India AI Impact Summit 2026 to be held at Delhi during 19th and 20th February 2026. This is a pre-summit events aligned with the national initiative of AI for Atmanirbhar Bharat and eventually for the Vikshit Bharat. AI today represents not just technological advancement but a strategic capability for national development. The focus for India is to build indigenous, scalable, and context awareness AI solution for contribute meaningfully to economic growth and social transform. We have privilege to have two distinguished speakers. I kindly request Professor Naveen Kumar to introduce our speakers for today's talk.
Maybe first I can request Madam to say a few words.
Good morning. So, on behalf of Homi Baba National Institute, Professor Dipanita Datta, Associate Dean HBNI, welcome you all. Today's speaker is Professor Sri Ankush Shah, CEO of Flexi Slides Private Limited, and Sri Abhijit Thande. I welcome you all for this webinar or for this series. So this today's talk is very special for this organized as a part of MIC driven activity. And so IIC institutes are encouraged to organize the AI focused events on campus between 19 January to 9 February 2026, which is aligned with the India AI Impact Summit 2026, which has to be held in New Delhi in February 19 to 20, 2026. And it has 7 AI different themes. It's based on 7 AI themes. And one of the theme is economic growth and social good, and which focuses on building the indigenous AI solution for economic and social impact. And students and faculty learn how to move from AI users to creators of the AI value chain, and how the higher educational institutes can translate campus-based AI research projects into viable startups. That is the main focus of this topic. And this industry start startups and industry partnership and social impact solution, and to help AI ideas progress from classrooms to the real world solution. So I welcome the speakers for this special event, which is the pre-summit event for the Institution Innovation Council, that is our HBNI Institution Innovation Council program. And this is basically that for that summit at New Delhi, and this is a pre-summit program for the MICE ribbon activity. So I'll welcome, and I hope there is a the people will be very much interested about this talk, and this is a very recent topic. This is AI, and I hope this will be very enthusiastic that about this talk. So
Thank you. So, good morning.
no,
Right.
introduce the speakers.
So, good morning to all the respected colleagues, Professor Dipanvita Datta, Professor Madhumita Goswami, Dr. Rachna Agarwal, Dr. Bhavita Tiwari, Dr. Paramjit Singh, and my colleagues from BRC, students, those present online. A very warm welcome to this HBNI webinar for today. And as Madam has also pointed out, and Paramjit also has pointed out, that AI, artificial intelligence, is the buzzword these days. Everywhere, wherever you go, probably no sphere of life, whether you are a literate or you are an illiterate person, it is touching the everybody's life. And somewhere and in one way or the other way, all of us are directly or indirectly using or getting benefited from artificial intelligence. And that's why these days, starting from the grassroots level, at the college level, to the students who are going to graduate, to the industry leaders, to the world leaders, you will find that there is hardly any form or hardly any meeting where the AI is not mentioned. And starting from, you must have heard about the Davos also, that people talked so much about the artificial intelligence. And today's event is much more specific in the sense that our students, we have today with us two distinguished speakers who will share their experience, who have vast, rich, I would say that, experience in the industry, and they are working over the years. They are here to, they are kind enough rather to accept our invitation for this webinar and be here to share their experiences. And let me tell you to the speakers that ours is a basically distributed structure as far as HPNI is concerned. And the viewership is mainly online and further through YouTube. So many times, please, I request you that if you have questions, we'll be sending you the questions also, and maybe you will spare your valuable time to answer those questions. And certain restrictions are there. Why YouTube is so much? As I was telling you, HPNI is basically, you can say, this is an R&D institute, and the four institutes which are the R&D institutes, we have restrictions on the usage of mobile phones there. They cannot take inside, and some limitations are there because of the security concerns. So that's why this YouTube viewership is very large in that sense. And what I will request is that in future or post event, we will have queries, we will send to you, and please respond to that. Students will be highly benefited. With this small introduction, now let me introduce today's distinguished speakers. We have with us Sri Ankush Shah, and it's my pleasure to introduce Sri Ankush Shah, who is CEO of Flexilytics Private Limited, a seasoned leader in generative AI, advanced analytics, and digital transformation. Yeah. So you'll get. Okay. Mr. Shah is having nearly 25 years of experience across sectors including BFSI, healthcare, manufacturing, and public services. He specializes in translating AI from concept to measurable business outcomes. An alumnus of Columbia Business School, he focuses on building strong data architectures and scalable AI frameworks beyond the hype cycle. We look forward to his insights on building robust indigenous AI solutions for economic impact. Today, he will share his experiences with us. And with this brief introduction, let us welcome once again Sri Ankush Shah. Now, let me introduce the second speaker, Sri Abhijit Kandagle. I hope I have pronounced it correctly. Our second speaker, he is a social entrepreneur and director of Vruksh Foundation, working at the intersection of technology, policy, and grassroots entrepreneurship, recognized as a top innovator by the World Economic Forum and Amazon CTO Fellow and a US Department of State Professional Fellow. He is deeply committed to leveraging technology for inclusive and equitable development. We look forward to his perspective on how AI can empower communities and support sustainable social growth. Please join me once again in welcoming both Sri Ankush Shah and Sri Abhijit Kandavleji. We are honored to have you with us today. Thank you. Please, now the floor is yours. And the sequence in which you want. Sorry, I forgot to mention of the AIC Anusakti, uh, Adesh ji, Adesh Rao, and we have with the Bansal also. Where is? Achha, he has gone. Okay, okay. He is also with us. Yes. Task force member. Sorry, I forgot to mention their names, and other colleagues are also there. Yes.
Talk is actually
That's why.
HBNI and AIC, organized by HBNI, AIC, and also IIC, that Information Council. So this is talk is.
Yeah.
Come. You are with the talk.
Presentation, please.
Yes.
Presentation.
They, they will focus on most.
So while we put up the presentation, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And as you mentioned, uh, running Flexilytics and having 24 years of experience in the industry, we've seen, adoption usually is always a challenge. Everybody talks about, and last 2 years we've seen AI, being hyped. People were scared, first of all. AI is going to replace my jobs. AI is going to take over a lot of things. Uh, Now we have seen that yes, the what we were looking at wasn't, of course, barring last week's knee-jerk reaction to the stock markets when Anthropic said we can do these things. The stock markets corrected in 2 3 days when the clarity started coming in that it's not going to do this overnight. And of course, while uh, it can do certain amounts of things, they are still not production grade. They are still not ready to be deployed in the market in terms of saying that okay, this person does X and tomorrow that person's job is entirely absolutely useless, right? We need to, the way AI typically works, and I will cover some of those points in the subsequent slides, is uh, of course it just is not talk. We need to move from chat based interfaces to an agentic interface where we are integrating our regular workflows, our way of working with, so something similar to what we would have seen, say, probably in Star Trek or in some of these sci-fi movies that we would have seen, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we've seen, right? Humans and AI have to coexist together, and it's something similar to the industrial revolution that we had, where we used to run around on horses and carts, and people were scared that cars will take over and we'll not have anything of that sort. Yes, today nobody moves around on horses. Why? Because I would do 4 to 10 kilometers an hour on a horse or a bullock cart, whereas today I average speed in Bombay, in spite of all the traffic, is still 40 kilometers, 30-40 kilometers an hour. So the horse, yes, at times would be faster in Bombay, but that's the change or the size of change that we are looking at, because this is the new AI revolution where yes, something that would take me a team of, and it's not just AI, technology has moved on entirely. AI has been around since last 70s, right? So without AI has been around since a while. It's just that adoption, execution has become much easier, and integration with our ecosystem, because we have adopted, right? Because last uh, 4 years back, what would take me a 40-member team to execute a project, probably 10 years back, I would execute a large digital transformation project with 40 members spread over 2 years, has now shrunk down to 4 months with probably 4 or 5 members, right? And this is, I'm talking of multi-crore large enterprise projects which would go in a bank, right? And today that has disrupted, and that is where you see the reaction coming onto the IT services companies, because what would be a multi-million dollar project suddenly has become a $500,000 project. Why? Because I can do the same amount of things much faster, better, more efficient, rather than deploying less humans. And of course, the bigger chunk is we are talking of the human capital. But from when I look at it from a business perspective, what would be a very expensive transition is something that I can do at half or one fourth the cost at 5x the speed that I would do compared to previous. So the benefits of moving from what I would do in the last, so what's happening is, you have also seen the way we were querying or working with ChatGPT or Gemini 2 years back. Now, if you are an advanced querier, you can get pretty much half your research paper done using ChatGPT, right? Of course, whether we believe all of it, whether we go through all of it, you can't just simply get the output from ChatGPT and put it and as part of your dissertation, you will most likely get discredited because it's not giving you the right output that you're looking at. But what we are working on are systems where it has to be human augmented, right? Now imagine the human effort of going through thousands of articles to identify what is a new area, because you might have spent 2 years researching something and then find out that somebody in some remote location in Mongolia or Russia has come up with a paper in local language in that region and published it. It may be not exactly what you're doing, but it may be supporting what you're doing. If I can identify in a cross language, somebody has comes with some supporting research that is supporting our thesis as well, and go through hundreds of such worldwide applications or worldwide articles that have been published, come up with a summary or come up with something that may be relevant, because it's like finding a needle in the haystack. That's why we spend so much time doing research, right? Uh, and that's where the agents start coming in, where it's not just one chat GPT or one perplexity that is doing this. And that's the move, or that's the shift that's happening currently, where I can program multiple agents to do this for me, right? And we are moving from an entire orchestration system, moving from a single system to an orchestration system of multiple agents that would do this on a continuous basis, not just do web research, but identify new areas, right? What are new applications for the work that I am doing? Because that's the shift that we need to do, and that's where the government is also pushing. Because uh, on one end of the spectrum, I will cover some parts of that as well going forward. I'm just giving you a quick summary in terms of what we are doing, is moving from research, which has been researched and not been executed or adopted by the industry. Because on one end, the industry is adopting and they're executing, but the research goes in a completely different direction, or is, how do I monetize this research that we are doing? How do I make sure that the research is moving from just being a research paper to actually being executed in real life, right? So just a quick summary in terms of what's happening in India right now. India has been investing significantly in the mission outlay. Just the budget, this is cabinet approved numbers of 10,371 crores. While we have, of course, this number keeps moving every day. 38,000 GPUs have already been implemented or achieved as part of India AI mission. Uh, and the target is in the next 2 to 3 years, we should be hitting 100,000. So 1 lakh GPUs should be implemented, right? So we are popping chips like Lays. No one can eat just one. Uh, and, the chips are being implemented. And I will come to that as well in terms of the volume of chips that need to get implemented or the infrastructure that is getting deployed. Um, and why do we need this kind of infrastructure, right? Because otherwise, if we are dependent and we have access to international GPUs as well, I can go to a AWS or a Google or any one of these platforms to leverage some of these GPUs, but we can only win on applied intelligence on a rupee basis, because the cost that we are paying on those GPUs, one, it's a rented infrastructure, right? It's SaaS. So tomorrow, if we have political issues where, Mr. President over there says that, tomorrow आज से भाड़ा नहीं दूंगा, तुमको खरीदना है तो खरीदो, या फिर, you're out, and these are the new wars that are going to be, the tariff wars that are going to be there. That's one. Of course, if I'm spending in dollars and earning in rupees, that's a big difference as well. Because if I'm doing India AI and I'm doing implementing for Bharat use cases, we are going to be earning, and UPI is the biggest example. It's free, if not even free. It when we started also, it was doing 10 paisa, 1 paisa, 1 rupee, 2 rupees per transaction. Even if it's a 1 lakh rupee transaction, we're paying 1 rupee. Whereas the international networks take a percentage out of the transaction amount. So that's the real reason why UPI was able to scale as well, because the cost was something that we are able to bear as India, right? We are so used to, for the same internet bandwidth, I pay 1,000 rupees, 500 rupees in India, which I would pay, 5,000 rupees in the US. Of course, the quality of bandwidth is different, but the difference is also significant, right? So that's the reason why adoption of internet, adoption of mobile phones has proliferated in India, and we are using AI at the grassroots level. So for me to win in India, in Bharat, I have to be able to earn in rupees. The government has to be spending in rupees, not in dollars. So that's also the infrastructure. Because if I were to look at the GPUs, they are exactly what I need, from a India infrastructure perspective, where we are investing in flyovers, we are investing in dams, we are investing in all the other infrastructure. This is core infrastructure for our AI growth in the future, right? We have capability. India has always been, as in, we've been talking about brain drain since years. Same scientists in India are doing the research outside or internationally as well. However, the patents get, you know, patented in those countries for those companies that they are working for. Even in India, when we are doing this, if it's outsourced, we are still doing this for the MNCs and not for India itself, right? So as researchers, our focus should be on how can we patent, or how can we own the next set of technology, because everything that gets patented does not necessarily move into production, or everything that gets researched is not moving into production. So we need to move from research to pilots, ensure that we are focused on demos that result in outcomes. Because when we go in organizations, when we do a proof of concept, POC is a proof of concept for the demos or for companies, the challenge usually is, I'm just looking at a very small objective, tum itna karke dikha do, and this will work for us, or we are ready to pay money. People have been investing in startups, on just a presentation, and millions of dollars are flowing just to that. Here we are moving from POCs to actual execution production at India scale, because we've got problems that scale that the world has not seen. Uh, we've got health issues, we've got education issues, we've got people in rural India who have access or have the brains but don't have access to technology. How do I ensure that indigenous AI or sovereign AI that we are now calling, as in, why I'm referring to indigenous, because this is the same challenges that Africa is also facing. And Africa is doing a lot of things as well, because they have similar set of issues. They have 7,000 plus languages, a whole set of dialects. I'm not even considering in each of their countries. They have got thousands of, sorry, at least about 35, 40 countries. We, as a continent, of course, they're much larger than India itself, but the problems for them also, they don't even have the adoption that we've got in terms of the internet. Uh, they've got extreme weather. Uh, on the other side, water scarcity, lot of social problems similar to ours, and they are also doing similar kind of work on Bhashini, on Indic languages. So they are doing this on African languages, and it's the time for us to collaborate, where we are looking at AI as a tool, and uh, the problem is, it's not a tool, it's a system. We have to look at it as a system. We're looking at it as everybody working together in a collaborative fashion, so that we are able to work on the greater good, right? And that's where the benefit of scale will start coming in. Because if I'm solving for just a single problem, yes, I will focus on execution and I will focus only on one problem. So if I'm focusing on healthcare, or if I'm focusing on education, I should be only focused on that, and how best can I solve it. But when I solve it for scale, it automatically happens, because the commercialization of any technology, if you see in the years, has always been business, or on the other side, crime adopting it, right? So most of the Hawala networks were actually built for crime, and then that converted into international payment networks, right? Technology has been used or misused initially, and that's what we are seeing with AI as well. People have been misusing chatbots, GPTs to research papers or do their quick work and put it up, and then eventually they realize that that's not going to cut it, right? But yes, the minute I see that yes, this is working for me, uh, blockchain is a great technology, but crypto is being misused for a lot of the other networks. Initial use of streaming technology was for pornography, but now it has moved to a completely different platform where we are now streaming, and education or new knowledge is happening on the same platform, or innovations that that industry came up with, right? So we don't know where this next innovation is going to come from, where people have been using, right? So almost everybody would have received at least 10 emails in the last year saying your email account has been hacked, or your passwords need to be done, uh, give me 2000 rupees, or some form of this, and we're seeing that happen. And I will talk of a couple of use cases on how we can do this, right? The challenge usually is, everybody talks about LLM training. Uh, how can I do a million parameters, billion parameter training model? And that's what gets the biggest hype or the biggest noise in the industry, where ChatGPT comes out with a new model, and then in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Anthropic comes out with a new model, and then Gemini comes out with a new model, and everybody's talking about that. But where are the execution actions happening? And that's where now, if you see, Anthropic has started picking up where ChatGPT and Google were left behind in terms of execution, or moving to a code based platform where I can run actual code and test that code, right? Multi agent infrastructure that is starting. But where all of these platforms are lagging today is governance. These AIs are all black boxes. I have no idea uh, how the integration, compliance, how did they even arrive at that idea, right? Because I just gave certain context, it went ahead and created something which is out of the box, or which nobody has even thought of, and is not even real. So how do I ensure that the compliance is happening? Is where the governance part is, where the next set of innovation has to happen, is happening currently as well. But we need to make significant strides there, right? And of course, the last part is economics. I have to do this at, and China and India have been at the forefront of this, where you know Anthropic and ChatGPT are training models for every dollar that they spend over there. China is doing that at 20 cents and 30 cents, uh, and they're doing equivalent or better models than what the US guys or the European guys are working on. I'm not saying we should not focus on those kind of models. We are doing it. Sarvam just last week came out with even better numbers than ChatGPT did, right? And this is just, I think, 2 days or 3 days back. So we are catching up. We are doing similar kind of work, but then yes, LLMs are just the backbone or infrastructure. LLMs are not what's going to drive the next 2 years, 3 years of what we are going to be innovating on. LLMs, yes, become the backbone, but the integration of LLMs into how I can run my inferences on AI with explainable data points, which if even if I'm using this, because imagine a human researcher combined with an AI agent researcher, and I have 5 AI agents that are working for me. One does technical research, another does product research, another looks at applications of the research that I'm doing, and working on this, right? So I can compress my thesis period from 4 years to something that I can take to market, not just complete the thesis. Of course, my education system is not changing. I still need to spend 4 years or 5 years. But if I can monetize some of those opportunities, or I can talk better, I get an international platform or a forum where I can implement the research that I'm doing in 2 years or 3 years. Look at the quality of research that is starting to come out, because what I could do or manually go through thousands of pages, I can do that in a much shorter period of time, right? and that is explainable because I can then tag it to the specific example, specific research paper that I went to. I spoke to a specific, because the minute I know that okay, this is the person that I need to speak to sitting in Mongolia who has done this, I can today also use AI to do a live conversion if that person doesn't speak English and I also don't speak English, right? I will talk in Hindi. AI in real time will translate that into real world stuff uh, in the language that the other person understands, right? Otherwise, I would have had to again hire a translator. I would need to either travel. I can do this on video. I can do this sitting here, right? That's what's changing now. Um, so what's also changing is context engineering. We are on context uh, now. Prompting is what we were looking at when everybody's been speaking about prompt engineering. I need to, and I think most of you are research guys. You guys know how to write a proper prompt. Uh, of course, I can't ask questions, but if people have questions, we can definitely. The audience is distributed, but if you have questions in terms of how to write a prompt, there's a structure, right? There are multiple structures that are available. You need to give the context. You need to give what are you searching for. Simply just writing a prompt, tell me which what topic should I research, and I want to do research on education, is a very bad prompt that I would give to ChatGPT because it will just give me random stuff or whatever it thinks is right. It's not going to give me the direction. The minute I say that okay, I want to research on how can I implement nuclear physics for a particular segment, how steam is getting converted, or you know how what is the reaction for a particular rare earth along with uranium enrichment that focuses on my specific area of research, that will give me a much better result or outcome. But that still doesn't cover what exactly I'm looking for because we've already done or learned that for last 4 years. So I have to be very precise in the kind of prompt that I'm putting to a chat GPT. Or today there are of course platforms that allow me to do specific research itself, right? So they are research oriented, scientific research oriented platforms which will only do research papers and not do the general GPT that is there, and I'm sure you guys are aware of that. But what's changing now is context engineering, because I need to give my learnings of the last 2 years 3 years that I have been doing research. Whereas and I'll come to the security parts later. I don't want to just give this because then suddenly AI becomes smart and then starts taking my context and giving it to somebody else, whereas my 4 years of research was for a toss, right? So I'll come to some of those things in the subsequent slides. But the idea is how do I ensure my guidelines of the university are being followed? My guidelines or my SOP of research is being customized to my specific area. If it is business, I need ERP data, I need tickets, I need whatever the business context that I'm trying to work in. If it is, I have nuclear protocols that I need to follow, and it has to follow within those protocols strictly. That's the kind of context that I need to do. Otherwise, it will just simply do a research which is like a simple Google search, right? Probably advanced Google search that I'm trying to do. But the minute I start using context and saying that these are all the constants that you have, so I have given 10 page contexts to AI when we do certain amounts of research or certain amount of stuff, right? Even prompts for that matter. We've gone to that level of say telling the AI, you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. And that's where I come to the engine, because that's where the AI actually breaks it down in terms of understands what is required. Today, of course, the public LLMs have a limitation on ingestion, but the minute I start moving to context engineering or running multiple agents, I can run my entire thesis as, or the thesis of the entire batch as an ingestion and saying that, okay, identify a new area of research or identify new areas of areas. It then chunks it down, so it's called chunking, which breaks it down into smaller pieces. Vector stores are nothing else but giving it the context in terms of when I'm saying that, okay, uh, you know, uh, when I'm referring to, how would I put this? I'm giving you a Ferrari or a Lamborghini without any brakes. What would happen? I would not use a car, any car for that matter, without any brakes. So vector stores allow me to add that control in terms of saying that, okay, this is the brake, this is the clutch, this is the accelerator, and it defines that particular piece. Where do I want to go, right? I want to travel from here to Nariman Point, I want to travel from here to Pune, and that's the areas in terms of this is the constraint. I probably, and because I'm traveling in a Maruti or a train or a Lamborghini, it adds that as a context as well. Because the minute I say yes, the first speed breaker, I'll probably fly off the, if I'm accelerating at 100, 200 kilometers an hour, I'll fly off the first speed breaker, or the car itself will not cross that because you get stuck on that. So that's the context that I need to pass on as well. Because if the context is not passed, it can take any option which is not my preferred option, taking it as bus or train, which was not something that I gave as a context, right? And then of course we have role-based access control, which is RBAC. So the dean should be having access to certain amounts of information, which -1 to the team or the set of professors, -2 to the set of researchers or senior researchers under them, and -3 for the people under them or the new students, because they should have limited access or controlled access. Because I also want to ensure that the HR department doesn't see what the finance department is looking at, and vice versa. So how am I preventing this? And this is more important when it comes to when I'm talking of at India level or scale level. It comes to personally identifiable information. I definitely do not want to give my PAN, Aadhaar numbers, or say that, okay, this is Ankush, he's a voter, he stays in this region, and this is his phone number, this is his PAN number. The minute I have all of these things, it can be definitely misused, even if it is not being misused for the research that I am doing. Because the minute all of this data goes to a training model, you have no idea in terms of whether it may be used for the next set of training, or I did not ask a simple question. The minute the next set of trainer or next person says, give me all the people staying within this area who meet this socio-economic parameter, you don't know, AI will just give you a response straightforward that is there, right? Today, because with agents, I can simply go identify which region it was, what's the PAN card address, get that, identify where does Ankush stay, get the PIN code, identify the socio-economic region, look at his LinkedIn, look at his social media platforms, get that data, and combine all of that and say that yes, Ankush meets our parameters, or Abhijit meets our parameters for this particular research, and it's given that out. I didn't ask a question specifically, but then suddenly all this data is leaked, right? So these are all leakages that are coming, and that's what brings me to the context in terms of grounded recovery, grounded retrieval, because grounding is very important when it comes to my data governance, when it comes to my permissions, in terms of auditability, where did I get this data from? Because tomorrow, and we are all working in research, we are working with government, we are working with overly sensitive areas, because as you mentioned, even mobile phones are not allowed. How do I put all of this into the internet or into a black box LLM that has absolutely no idea in terms of how this output is happening? So I need to ensure that this data that I am sharing with is only specific to the use case that I'm giving it for. It is only being used for the specific task that I allowed it to use it for, right? If I'm giving this data, which is either cleaned data, and I'll come to that in terms of whatever I'm using. So my context packs have to be where I'm collecting this data. It could be SOPs, it could be PDS, wherever this data is there. I need to ensure that I'm redacting or cleaning this, so which goes into a clean room. And specifically when the data goes to a vector engine or an index or an LLM, I am making sure that I am not sending any of this information to them. I'm just giving them the context. These are the kind of people that I want to research. This is the kind of material that I want you to research. This is the kind of business use case that I have, or the research material that I have, that I want you to give them the context to the AI. The AI will focus only on that context or that chunking, and then get you the search results or whatever is required, and rank that accordingly, right? And of course, work within the constraints. So I will tie AI down specifically that you can't give me or create new stuff. You have to work within this environment only, and give me data from only this area. Because what's happening now, and these are immediate, so if you see on top, Bhashini, Voice AI, AI Coach, MOSPI, these are all government initiatives that the government is working on. They've just released an MCP server. So for most of you who know, MCP is how I'm transferring the context from one AI platform to another AI platform. And what the government has done under MOSPI is they've taken the entire India statistical data, they've taken entire India stack data available and is queryable by LLMs directly on the MCP server, right? So I can take all of the India context directly from there for the applications that I'm trying to try. Of course, there are other initiatives on healthcare. We don't have space and time to cover all of those things, but on healthcare, I have exactly data, in terms of disease profile, in terms of which kind of region, what kind of stuff is happening at the ground level, at India level, because we are now starting to digitize the healthcare ecosystem as well. We've got education, we've got AI Coach, which has trained data sets which are readily available for researchers to simply go and query that databases and take data from there straightforward, and use that as part of your research. And these are initiatives that the government makes sure that you are getting the data, you are getting indexed or the context that is required for you. Because the minute I say that I am trying to research, uh, you know, use cases for nuclear medicine in a particular cancer particular form of cancer that affects, say, only certain types of people in rural India, which are in a specific one. I'm tying down that entire context to only that disease profile of a particular type of cancer of a particular socio-economic region, because it's prevalent only in these areas. Or why is thyroid picking up so much in terms of these areas? So I'm trying to identify and put the context, make sure that it is tied only to that specific constraint that I'm trying to put, and also give me results that are specific to this constraint, right? So my research output is going to be that much more focused, and my context pack is something that I have prepared, because the minute I say this, now I would want to test this hypothesis. How do I test this hypothesis? Because this context pack now I can use. Does it work in Africa? Does it work in other areas, South America, which are also similar regions compared to India? They have a similar ecosystem. Indonesia, we are close to the equator. There are a lot of similarities in the kind of material that we consume, in the kind of our way of life, all of those things. Does the same context apply there or not? Because all of this is now trained on my India stack, and now I can take this international, right? So, and these are where I come from, the execution stack, because the minute I have given this context, when I go to these countries, or even for India, does it apply to, uh, you know, because when I'm doing research, I am still today, we are clueless in terms of how cancer is affecting us, or how a certain disease is flowing. We still are researching in terms of how COVID hit us. Of course, we know certain parts of it, but we still don't know how it spawned into the way it did. So when I talk about the same things, when it comes to business, when it comes to uh, the India stack in terms of education, when it comes to healthcare, uh, the minute I have trained all of these things, right? Uh, in simple use cases, if I were to give an example, I think most of us would be familiar in terms of UPI fraud, in terms of identifying how financial fraud is happening, mule accounts are happening. The minute I open an account, I have to give KYC. It's something that I need to do, and something that banks have to do. People have been dragging their feet, but the minute I have KYC, I can now have an agent continuously keep checking if Ankush's PAN records or any bank transactions are fraudulent. It can go against a global database of checking any such records or any such cross-referencing, because if even if Ankush is green lighted here, he might have done one transaction with some ISIS guy or some, overlapping, not even directly, but Ankush transferred to X person then transferred or had some relationship with ISIS. Even if I don't have a direct relationship, how does that transaction happen or go through the global ecosystem is where I can put these agents to continuously keep monitoring, right? Because, and that's where India has been struggling to contain fraud, because if I'm not able to detect 5 minutes of it happening, that money is leaving the country, and once it leaves the country, there's no way that I can get it back. But if I can stop the fraud while it is happening, or I can stop these mule accounts, because I transfer to Abhijit, Abhijit transfers to Sir, Sir transfers to somebody else, and within 5 minutes, because these are all 5 different banks, the minute leaves in my bank, my bank has absolutely no control over the other bank in terms of stop this transaction. But the government at our level, we can stop it, right? The government is now trying to put a whole ecosystem in place where multiple banks talk to the government and the government talks to each of these banks and the transaction systems, where UPI fraud eventually should go down or get identified at least while it is happening, so that I can block the nefarious players. So we are getting smarter, but then of course these guys will come up with new systems where they can probably work out. But yes, it takes a little amount of time. But again, this is not a simple system where I just simply say, here's the database, here's the whole set of people that I need to track, right? I need to have multiple agents or thousands of agents that are running through in parallel at the same time. And for this is what the infrastructure that the government is spending on. That's the reason for India AI at scale, because we were just talking before we came in, where the new India AI mission is not just India, but it's global, right? We are taking the India stack of UPI, healthcare, uh, our uh, 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 the other systems that we have as part of the India AI stack. We are now competing almost head to head with Swift, where other countries are now adopting UPI. Singapore, Dubai have been talking about or already implementing, where Indians are able to pay with rupees in other countries. The minute this happens at a scale, now imagine I was just talking about this fraud happening in India. I have to now stop fraud happening in other countries as well. So my stack has to scale at that level as well. So these again include legacy banking systems. I have no idea of how the banking system in Africa works. I have no idea of how the banking system in Dubai works, and they're all in different areas. And the banking system in US is probably 5 years behind, 5 or 10 years behind what we do in India. They are just starting to learn or modernize all of those things. So I need to have a combination of database. I need to have a combination of RPA. I need to have a combination of agentic AI. I need to have a combination of all of these things orchestrated together in a sandbox environment, because I can't experiment with financial data. I can't put all my financial data to an LLM or a black box engine and say that, find me this bad agent, because that's where the doomsday scenarios start picking up. Because the minute I say that, okay, here, we have no idea how AI is going to react to that data set, considering, and it's a very powerful data set, because if I know who's doing the fraud, what's happening, what's the motivations. Today, just last month, I saw a website. AI can hire humans for doing physical work that AI can't do. They've just come up with a website. Last 2 weeks back, they came up with a website where social media for AI agents, where AI agents are logging in, like it's called Moltbook. And it's a social media platform for AI agents to talk to each other and complain about humans or whatever task that they are doing. So the idea is, of course, how can we leverage AI to ensure that this data is air gap? We are giving or working on areas where this data is sensitive, IP, critical information. I will not give to, because we are not allowing our mobile phones in such areas. How do I ensure that the system that I'm giving is AI is running on my platform? And fortunately, unfortunately, like how we saw, something called Claude bot, or now of course we have multiple names for it because Claude raised it. So, it started as CloudBot, then they had to rename it to OpenClaw or MoltClaw, or they've now come up with multiple uh, names for it. But that's something that takes over your entire privacy. It can run and execute on your desktop or machine, combine all your WhatsApp chats, combine all your emails, combine your browsing history, and remember it. And this is the way you work and replicate that, right? So far, what was missing for most of the large companies was doing this in cloud, but not being able to execute on machines. So while this had a completely different use case, it is open source. Uh, it's not secure today. It allows for a lot of prompt injection. It allows for a lot of stuff. But yes, in the next 1-2 years, this probably will go through iterations, allow me to run on edge with low latency. If I can now ring fence this entire same architecture to work in private clouds on edge devices where, for example, my nuclear reactor needs certain capabilities, or on on field I have an, of course we're talking for peace, but I'm just giving use cases where you know my missile or my drone, while it is on enemy territory, needs to be able to take a real time decision, real time calculation, taking in all the parameters that need to happen at that point in time. I can allow or enable all of those use cases there. I can make doctors smarter when they are in a particular region, in a remote location where they have access to no internet. uh, you know 20 people village, they've never seen a disease of that sort, or they've seen there are some diseases but they have no idea where to do, right? Imagine the power of the entire internet and LLM, which is being trained on only disease profiles, can only work within that particular segment and working remotely on that person's laptop or mobile phone in that region, right? So that's, but then the whole thing comes at what cost, right? Because how do I ensure, and today mobile phones are smart enough and powerful enough for me to do that, but how do I ensure? So the cost, of course, is not just money but even privacy. So how do I ensure both cost? Because otherwise, if it's not per rupee, if I'm not able to generate and do this at say 10 rupees, 50 rupees, or 100 rupees per patient that I'm addressing, it's not going to scale. I can't spend 10 lakh rupees in terms of training AI models to identify one sort of disease and then expect either the government or the patient to pay up for that, because it's cheaper for me to just simply, you know, unfortunately either let the patient die or get that patient to Bombay, where probably, or Delhi AIMS, go to one of these institutes and then do research or identify how to address the requirement of this patient. Or same thing for, if I'm spending lakhs of rupees to identify a 10 rupee or 20 rupee fraud, it's not going to scale. I have to be able to identify fraud in a fraction of a cost, because that entire governance stack, because guardrails are required for me to, and that these red teaming is basically ethical hacking, which I need to run on my entire ecosystem that I am trying to build, right? And these are again government based, so NIST and OWASP. So OWASP is international, NIST is of course uh, because US has been ahead in terms of forefront on this. These are two already, sorry, well-known, renowned uh, SOPs that are available for people, and we have scram buttons that we are familiar with. We need to be able to stop AI the minute it starts going off, right? So I have unlimited data streams, I have data coming in, but if policy access is not being allowed, if any tool list or governance grounding is not happening, the minute it starts hallucinating, I can only stop hallucinations when my data is grounded, governed, and controlled, and I have a kill switch. I can say stop right now, you can't go further, or I'm putting control on AI, right? So these are some things that I need to focus, because being part of responsible AI, if I can't audit it, I can't deploy it, especially in critical or mission sensitive areas. I can't simply misdiagnose a patient. One patient I will probably misdiagnose, but if I'm doing this at India scale, and imagine the kind of misdiagnosis that I'm doing, people are going to, I'll be cutting India's population into half, and AI is helping doing that, accelerating the whole process. Same thing for fraud. Suddenly you'll see that even 20 rupee and 30 rupee UPI payments are stopping, because the number of false positives will turn up so much, right? So I need to make sure that I am giving it the right context. I am making sure that the grounding is happening. Otherwise, it treats every 20 rupee transaction, because I'm a fruit seller. I suddenly outside a place where 5,000 people came and I'm selling it like hotcakes, or water for that matter, in the desert. Everybody wants water, and the number of transactions are going up significantly. Where until yesterday there was no transaction, all my transactions stopped, right? So use cases. How do I pick use cases for AI where everything that I spoke about, right, so far was of course very theoretical or conceptual, but in use cases, I already gave you an example on KYC and anti-money laundering, which is where I can make sure that I am doing this in seconds so that the government or the banks, my intermediaries, police people, everybody's got notifications on time to stop the transaction happening. Same thing for loan applications. Today, if anybody here has applied for a personal loan, it can get approved if I have my credit capabilities. I can get approved, and within 5 minutes to 10 minutes, the money is in my account. That's how fast today, and this is all enabled at the back end because I can talk to multiple systems. I can get the data from there. I can get credit history. If I don't have credit history, AI can build a credit history for me. Because even if I'm a student, I have been making my payments on time, or my parents have been making a payments on time, and I can make sure that all the backing is there. I am a student, and these are all kinds of context boring workflows. Because why does it take so long for a home loan approval? Because it has to go through and identify, is the property genuine, is the builder genuine, is the person who's applying for it is genuine, does the person have capacity to pay, and this follows a complete SOP. That's something that I can shrink today, and banks and organizations, RBI included, have been working on reducing that entire piece, right? Because today land records now are digitized. Government has put in RERA to ensure that yes, I can do this. For most simple taxpayers, I don't have to do anything. The government is giving me specifically, this is the tax amount that I need to pay. This is the income that you have received. This is the expenses that you have made. Any large expenses are already covered, and they are giving you exactly what you need to do. This is the amount you need to pay and convert it. Now imagine doing that at scale for all Indians, even if you're a business owner, because that's the amount of data that the government has access to. So the recovery rates or the tax rates, tax compliance rates go up. Government gets more to spend more on citizen transparency, which then starts moving into the public, because I've got grievances, my tax is not eligible, or I've got certain pieces, I can immediately get it resolved. And we are seeing that happening with faceless transactions. Government has hundreds of schemes. Even for AI, there are hundreds of schemes that I'm looking at. Forget AI, we've got, PM Yojnas, multiple Yojnas that are available, but people don't know how to take benefit of it. Where to go? Am I eligible or not? I can enter my customized scenarios. Where do I stay? What do I do? All of those things to identify. Government has created a good website, but it is still confusing. I can't take it to Bharat. It is confusing for us. In spite of having all the education, for us it is confusing. The minute I say that, I can only talk in English, or in only Hindi or Telugu or my regional language, uh, I need to be able to chat with that data. I need to be able to query that data and say that, भाई मैं तो छोटा सा फार्मर हूँ, मुझे तो 2 लाख रुपए का सालाना इनकम है, और 3 lakhs, you know, how do I qualify, or what is? And he's addressing this, or he's talking, or he's trying to do this on a feature phone which doesn't even have, which has basic internet capabilities but can't do anything. So what's going to be the next thing that's going to change is where the government is focusing on Bhashini and voice, because voice is what's going to enable the next set of challenges for a lot of uh, you know eligibility or human adoption. The way we see it in, say, Iron Man movies, Jarvis just simply taking up what is there. That's probably where we are going to get to. Voice, of course, Alexas and Google uh, smart bots, they all tried it. They failed miserably because, of course, they did not have a lot of context. But the minute I start doing this with all of these things in place, uh, I can then train my bot specifically to be able to meet my requirements and control that. And that's where my review agents, my experiment logs, because everything that I'm doing as part of my research, every experiment that I do needs to be tagged. All outcomes need to be focused on. There are hundreds of machines. I have to go through all of that and then make sure that when I'm doing the same experiment again, it has to be able to be reproduced in a lab or in real world scenarios in the same way that I did it in my lab, right? So if I'm writing a paper and I'm now presenting this, I get invited to US or Europe to represent and redo this experiment. It has to work in the same way. How do I ensure that I'm testing this? I can create AI agents to just simply keep testing this. which will recreate or reproduce this entire environment multiple times, ensure that that is happening, and do this, right? Same thing for healthcare. I gave you examples earlier, but I think we are running out of time, but I'll end up covering that. So for HBNI, this is something that I came up with specifically. The context for us specifically is how do I ensure for researchers there are context packs, which I spoke about some time back, in terms of all the papers, all the data that I am researching. Can I create a whole context engine that is running specifically for us? Institutions, my domain, my adoption, the grounding that I have that yes, the researchers cannot step out of these boundaries. They have to maintain this particular area for us. So do the researchers as well, right? Because it has to meet the quality standards of HBNI or any institution that is running that particular engine. How do I ensure that startups have the right data set, or the researcher is moving from researching it to execution, right? Is this a real world idea or is it a philosophical idea? Since we are in research, in applied research, where we can, as you mentioned, my regular workflows, can I research or make my workflows better? Can I make my adoption of newer technology easier? And how can me as a researcher move from finding a new area and then monetizing it or creating a patent, making a company out of it? Because some of the biggest startups in the US have all been research based. They started off as research projects, and then they converted into a startup, which then became a global company or very focused niche startup that does only that particular piece. So this trifecta needs to come together, which is where we are lacking in India, because we do great research, and then there are startups which have no relationship, or very few startups that actually scale to that level, right? We are seeing some of that happening because once ISRO opened up some of these areas, we are seeing now a lot of new space age startups that are coming in. We need to be looking at the same kind of stuff for atomic research. We need to look at same kind of stuff, because that's what I was asking you. As in, of course, we've got some amount of stuff in quantum physics, but quantum physics is very closely tied to what we're doing any which ways out here. If I can do some of these things together and combine all of these things together, that's where I see in the next few years all of these results into something that is a governance framework. Again, all of that ties down to, if I can't measure it, if I can't, for every rupee or dollar that I spend, I should be able to get the benefit back in rupees. If I'm not doing that, and if I'm spending in dollars, earning in rupees, which has always been a challenge, we are where, and India is changing that very quickly. But yes, I need to adopt for India use cases. My error rates have been low. Sarvam has done a great job to show you that. And yes, if you see even ISRO, we landed a rocket on moon with very low error rate, which other countries took multiple attempts. So we have the benefit of hindsight to us in terms of making sure that whatever we do, our error rates should be lower, because unfortunately we don't have the budgets or the money that most of these other countries do have. So we have that as a constraint, but that also becomes a testing ground and something that innovation area for us, because I can do this at cheaper cost than some of these other countries and then make it scale, right? My grounded accuracy, I have to be able to refuse agents saying that no, I'm not going to give you this data, or you can't work within this area, you can't drift out of this area, right? So the minute I say, if I'm talking about atomic research and we are talking of rare earth materials, it has to work within that area. It cannot just simply ask or say that, okay, I can use the same rare earth material for some other use case. It needs to be able to do that, right? So how am I able to prevent that particular piece? And same thing is when I look at adoption, I cannot be waiting for 5 minutes. The minute I say that I'm putting a query and then waiting for 10 minutes, 1 hour, or I'm not looking at scale. We've all had a challenge. Everybody's trying to book a ticket at IRCTC, train ticket, and until recently, it would take multiple retries to just simply be able to log into a portal on time so that you can book your train ticket. Agents would take over, and those agents would charge you money. Of course, human agents, not AI agents, but would charge money, right? And you would still get a ticket, but you would pay significantly higher. Today, a lot of that has gone down because the latency, the technology has now taken up and been able to do that. But idea is, yes, how can I do this at scale? I just give you an example of, I can't be spending lakhs of rupees to trace a 10,000 or 100 rupee fraud. And that's easiest because 100 rupee fraud, koi jaake, the effort of just going and complaining about it is itself too much in today's time. 10 rupee, 100 rupee fraud. So how do I ensure that this scales so that even those 10 rupee frauds are caught? Because the minute I can do 10 rupees from 1 million people, I've made my life and made my money and I moved out. Some new actor will start coming in, or I'll continue doing that till I get caught. Right. So uh, and prompt injection is what I was just talking about. That's the biggest safety area that we need to work on, because the minute I come to edge AI, the minute I come to use cases where this is in a air gap use case, if it has not been planned in advance, using foreign APIs, foreign platforms to then customize and indigenize this in India, I have no idea. That's the reason why China got banned as well. Chinese equipment is banned in a lot of countries, because if they've already put a malicious code inside and then are selling it as a black box, and you say you build everything on top of that, and I've built my entire critical infrastructure on that, it just needs a switch for them to turn it on, even if it is without internet, on a particular event, say this particular time or event, switch it on, and it can hijack everything that we built for us, in spite of it all being customized. So we need to ensure that whatever we are doing is preventing, is is scalable from a future perspective, and that's where we need to look at it as a business. I'm saying, as a government, as a researcher, as everything else, we need to follow the sprint mechanisms, or the business entity make sure that it goes or ships in 90 days. I know it's a lot asking for from the uh, how would I say, from a researcher or government. In 90 days में तो हम खाली research का material पैदा करेंगे, but break it into chunks, right? If I'm going to do only one workflow, focus only on that one workflow and focus on improving, or stop and fix it, or kill the process. The minute I don't kill, and I'm saying kill, because if I don't do it, these guardrails are not going to scale. I am going, and AI is very capable of misleading us, because that shadow mode will will make us feel that yes, I am doing great. The agents are working, doing this much faster, but it'll start misleading us. And by the time you find out in 1 year, 2 year that you have been misled, it's already too late. Too late. So you need to kill, or be able to kill it at that point in time, and those guardrails are very important. All right. So final message. I am at the end. In terms of, just to summarize, we need to build context packs, which I spoke about at the beginning. Make sure that the sovereign agents, or the agents that we are creating on our ecosystems, the government is doing a great job. Of course, we need to do a lot more. We are nowhere close. But yes, it's something that is under construction, and we are starting to work on all of these agents that need to ensure that we are working on workflows and not just simply chatbots, right? I need to integrate my entire workflow. So if I'm automating or looking at my entire ecosystem, I have to go all the way from mining the rare earth to the time I'm using this rare earth in my application. Where all can I automate or optimize this entire piece, and optimize this entire intelligence per rupee? I can't be spending lakhs and crores of rupees, because first of all, we don't have those kind of budgets, and of course, I don't have room for error. The way the US companies and all of these guys, because unfortunately in India, research itself is underfunded. As in, the companies don't pay. Our way of research itself is very different compared to all of these other economies where they spend 5%, 6% on research. We are at probably half or lesser than half of that. So that's an area that we need to focus on and ensure that we are doing this. So of course, I think we are out of time, but yes, that's um, this is learning that I would also want to take, because I keep talking to a lot of people like you, and somewhere where I see that if you think that what I said is incorrect, or the architecture will fail in your particular area, or your constraints are not applicable here, more than happy to work with you and do or contribute to the research in terms of what we are doing out here as well. Right? Thank you so much. And you can, of course, reach out to me for any questions or the professors here, and they will reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let us thank Sri Ankush Shaji for his wonderful talk. And it was like mesmerizing, and so much knowledge was packed in such a short talk. And though he was telling that, yes, it is shortage of time, but I was feeling that it had started and 15 minutes back only. And I was much more eager to listen to many more things.
Sure, we can always continue discussing.
Yes,
That's
yes,
not a
thank you.
problem. But
So will come forward now? Yeah,
that's
we got
okay.
another one. Yes, I know. So, but I'm sure that the people will be waiting for the question. But I can make a request. We can have the second presentation also, and then we can go for the questions, answer session maybe later on. We start with
Mic
yeah.
on.
You just put on the yeah, you can.
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon. I think I was hearing Ankush, and I felt like this is like the fundamental laws of physics of AI in action. There, I think this what Ankush shared with all of us. When you actually have that in practice, uh, you understand the value of these things when you're actually deploying production level activities. And I'll maybe quickly move on to three specific topics. So one is on the application side, in terms of how do we look at grounded solutions, and a little bit on prompting, in terms of given that we all here are researchers and are actively using AI tools. And the third piece is around tools that we could use for our ongoing work. Can I? Uh, Again, a little bit of background about me. I think that has already been covered. I run this organization, Brooks Ecosystem. We work across impact and entrepreneurship largely, and uh, the application that I really want to speak about is around education. And because given that we're talking about how indigenous applications need to be used for social impact and local benefits, this is one use case that we've implemented, and we saw how this can transform at the local level. So we started at the peak of the pandemic, when we saw that education systems were broken, internet connectivity, mobile phone, all of that were challenges. And this is the problem statement that we started with. And where we're looking at students in rural areas, semi-urban areas with limited internet connectivity. We saw all of these news that people sold their cattle to buy phones, etc. And that was primarily, and that was something that real that we saw in while we were working with students, and that's what helped us to explore different solutions. So we moved on to WhatsApp, to audio, and saw this going forward, and eventually built a WhatsApp and a web LMS system for students to engage with. So this is using some of the very basic tools and technologies. So IVRS system, WhatsApp, Telegram, which जो हम लोग हमारे regular use में काम करते हैं, which are very low bandwidth solutions. That's something that we then applied AI on top of it to then leverage or take that power of knowledge back to the students and make it a scalable solution, and also implemented a no data solution, because then when we're talking about the India context, we have to work in certain constrained environments, and these constrained environments then scale to multiple geographies as well, and which is this specific solution we are also now trying to implement in refugee camps globally. uh, so I'll move a little bit here, but then this is these are some of the things that we used and leveraged. A key inspiration here for building such solutions, and that is where, as given that we have we're looking at startups, or we're looking at innovations come out, where does this where do these inspiration, where do these problem statements come from? So this is one student, I tell his story everywhere I go, who's Gaurav Devtare. He's uh, 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 a son of two farm wage laborers, and um, he saw this solution in his community that they wanted to build something around to scare away animals. So in the rural area there is this concept of carbide gun ki jahan pe aap you mix couple of chemicals locally available और उसको एक पाइप में डाल के आवाज करते हो, that creates a huge sound and then animals get scared away. So he given his ITI knowledge and expertise, he used that technical skill to build something out of PVC pipes, built it as a product, as a scalable product, and started selling in his in his village and nearby villages as well. And uh, this entrepreneur, he had that idea and he got down to that level. The reason why he, at the peak of the pandemic, he was able to do that because we implemented a lot of high-end technology to be accessible to him in a very basic WhatsApp environment. So though for the user it seems to be very simple, there was a there has been a technological innovation that has been applied towards it to make it so simple for the user to understand. And that is the trajectory that we should look at. Is हमारे end user को impact या फर्क नहीं पड़ता है कि you're using the best AI model or you're using uh, cloud or whatever. They want their problem to be solved, right? And when we are speaking about the India or the Bharat concept, this is how do you use, and exactly like हम UPI use कर रहे हैं, हम काफी सारे अलग technologies. There's so much massive work or technology innovation that is going on the back end, which makes it so simple कि हमने एक QR code scan किया और हमारा payment हो गया, right? So it should seem and feel seamless for any user out there to be able to use and implement it. So this is this is something that we've been working on. These are some of the screenshots to share with you, um, uh, where we've made it really multimodal for them to be able to access and use. um, so again, this is specifically with the application piece. So I wanted to have a quick note of that in terms of how do you look at indigenous solutions out there to and really design use cases. Now whether you are doing something deep tech, you're doing consumer technology, any of these tools and solutions, हम हमारे एंड कंज्यूमर या एंड कस्टमर तक के किस तरीके से पहुंचना चाह रहे हैं, एंड हाउ आर वी बिल्डिंग दोज टूल्स, दोज form those need to be involved in our designing process as well. And given that all of us now here come from that uh, uh, come from the research background, I was very, like, day before yesterday I was sitting with a couple of faculties around similar session around how to use AI for in their daily workflow. And one faculty asked me that can AI help me humanize the AI written content, because मुझे papers publish करना है, right? So again, these are the core issues that all of us as researchers, when we write these, and obviously there's no harm in saying everyone is using this, but are these the real problems or the questions? My response there was, I think the way that we need to start thinking or using about AI is, can AI help me ask better questions, do more research faster? Can I compress my 5-year, 6-year PhD timeline into 1 year and do more work alongside it, right? So if I'm doing that research work, AI helps me compress that timeline massively. Even some of the research work that we've been doing, what would have taken me a 3-month or 6-month process, I could do that in literally hours, because thanks to these tools and technologies that exist. Because now I don't need to learn a new tool, I don't need to learn a new technology, I don't need to learn a new language. I don't know MATLAB, but I did simulations with MATLAB just by using VS Code, because there was AI enabled on it, and it would have taken me a month or so to learn it, practice it, master it, and then deploy. And then actually doing that in literally few hours helped me scale up my timeline in terms of the research work that I was doing. So couple of interesting ideas that I came across in terms of again this internet pooled knowledge, in terms of how practitioners are putting this across, is how do you as Ankush started the presentation with, is, you don't help me write an email but help me do tasks, right? So it is now the state of AI, and that we have these agentic capabilities already built into it. What we are looking at is how do you prompt it to be better. So one is give it very specific that I need to write an abstract for this paper uh, in 200 words, which should combine, maybe the introduction should be 10%, the literature survey should contain 20% of it, and majority focus needs to be on the my conclusion and results, and then help me build that abstract, right? So it is helping you do better work, but the way you ask it to do those tasks is something that is very critical to do. So being as specific as possible. And then when we are using it in the real world process, how uh, the new or the way that these agents think, and you can see aajkal these thinking models have come across, where the LLM is thinking before it responds, right? Which is called a chain of thought process. So similarly, the way that we act or talk, when we are asked a question or when we are supposed to do a task, we think a little bit, understand what needs to be done, and then act upon it. That is how the LLMs also are behaving. They are mimicking our brain intelligence today. So the similar way that you need to tell them is, I want to go from point A to point B, and this is my thought process that I'm using towards it, right? So I, again, I want to solve this equation. I'm facing a trouble, and where I leverage these tools and technologies is, okay, uh, these are the inputs constraints. This is the thought process that I'm coming with, and this is the outcome that I want, and I need assistance specifically in this place, right? That is where the LLM or the AI tools and techniques will help you perform better. The next one here that uh, that has spun out was then having structured output. So whenever you ask it for a response, have that. Generally now a couple of hacks around it is you use specific code bases, like uh, uh, the way that you write a syntax, and ask it to give it as a JSON format or whatever, or you give inputs also as JSONs. So you want it to give in specifically, let's say I want this main point, uh, I want an understanding behind that, and then I want the evidence or the conclusion on top of it. And then the fourth aspect is few shots. So generally, the way that these LLMs, because they are trained on massive data sets, uh, they will give you very general intelligence, unless you have specific domain specific intelligent trained AIs for you. uh, how we start with it is also give it two or three examples in terms of how you want the output, so that it knows what you are expecting, and then ask it to respond to you. So I want to, again, let's say uh, I want to design this experiment. Here are two, three ways that I'm thinking about it. I want you to give me better or figure out what options or challenges exist in it, right? So when you give two or three of these examples, or you say that these three researchers did these three type of experiments, I want to try and figure out what to do next on top of it, or you're thinking something. So giving those specific examples or methods will help it to respond you better. um, and then a classic scenario which people have been using is trying to change the system prompt of it, which is you want it to act in a specific way with certain context. So if you're using generic LLMs, again, we give it a role play. That's what we call it. You are uh, again, you're a physicist with so and so knowledge, and here are some of the reference materials that I'm giving you. I want you to respond on those lines, right? That is when it helps you give better and grounded examples. So again, what we heard before is, how do you ensure in these specific infrastructures to uh, respond to you better. uh, Three tools specifically that I want to share with you is, again, from a research standpoint. Uh, OpenAI released this very interesting tool called Prism, which is now specifically for latex formatting. So given all of us, we write research papers in that format. So this helps you again move faster in that okay, I want to add an indent here, I want to move this image, I want to create this table. So I can now just chat with it and tell it, here is the data, please add this in this section in this paper, make whatever minor changes that you want to make. So these again, and especially again in the research domain, sadly we still have that where we are using a lot of plagiarism tools to detect AI generated content. And so plagiarism is one part. I believe with AI generated piece everyone is doing it, and sadly even in my experience, my human written content comes out to be AI generated or gets detected as AI generated, and AI generated does not get detected in that way. So there are fundamental flaws with it as well. What AI is enabling us to do is perform tasks at a better speed, right? So rather than stopping it or stopping the usage of it, how do we encourage and use that better
in the right way.
in the right way? Exactly. So again, as I said, coming back is, how do I use these tools to ask better questions? How do I use these tools to compress my research timeline and do more in that specific timeline? And a practice that a lot of people are also doing at the international level is now you either uh, they're giving specific notes around AI generated content, that these are the few things that were AI generated. This is how AI was leveraged in doing this research, which is also being appreciated by the larger scientific community. Is how do you and even when we work with students, etc. One practice that I saw with this organization and I really loved it and I'm replicating it is, whenever we give them a task, I know that the student is going to use AI to do that. I ask them to supplement with another document that how did you use AI, what prompts did you give. So now I'm trying to also gauge the intelligence that अपने prompt कितने अच्छे से लिखा है, right? It's like, did I say only do this task and execute, or have they really thought through in using the AI tool to get that work done? Some of the biggest companies or globally, these tools are now being used. uh, there are specific AI enablement teams to get user or that get companies to use AI more. uh, and again, one of the examples, Zerodha, which is a homegrown company, their CTO said that we're 90% of our code now is written by AI, right? So companies and corporations are not discouraging it, they're encouraging because it is giving me speed, right? Then why should we not replicate that speed in our research or problem solving efforts as well, right? Why do we need 5 years and 6 years to do a basic PhD when I can do maybe 10 times better in that same timeline when I'm leveraging these tools, right? Or when I'm, if I want to convert that PhD into a company or a venture, why am I not doing that? uh, that takes me to the second piece is, one of the best tools now from this coding and higher end analysis is Claude Code, which is being actively used by researchers and programmers regularly, which in different shape and forms. It's available directly in the terminal, you can use with VS Code, etc. as well. Again, there are certain guardrails that they've implemented, and it's supposed to be far better and intelligent. Third is, we spoke about workflows before. There are some of these tools called, one of them is called N8N. N, the letter, 8 the number, and N again, uh, where you can also self host this, so you are in a contained environment, no data leaves the system, and you can design workflows based on this. So I want to now perform certain tasks, I can host it in my own device, in my own server, completely air gapped system, and get it to run multiple iterations and many extensive applications right on top of it. There are organizations that are now doing running multi 40 people teams are being replicated by AI agents and being monitored by one person, right? So in the research, or from from a production standpoint or from an ideation standpoint, can I have these agents running in the background where if I'm doing an experiment, can it keep searching on the backend for new papers, new technologies that are coming in, new references? So it's continuously cross referencing for me. And also, again, multiple of these use cases that we are speaking about, how do we now leverage that to benefit the local community and the ecosystem, right? So again, coming back is what Ankush shared here, where the prime fundamentals in terms of how do you really design the ecosystem or the AI implementation in your experiment, your project, your company. What I'm sharing about is more on the application and real world standpoints, and this is how you build it to really to have that built for the user at the grassroots who's an everyday user of your tool or technology. So I'll stop at that and we can open up for questions.
Thank Sri Abhijit Kandagle for his wonderful talk. And now the session is open for the questions. Those who are online, either they can type or they can raise their hands and they can ask the questions. Otherwise, we'll ask from the people in the room. Yeah. Students, you are having? Yeah, please. You just switch on your mic first.
Introduce ourselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Rahul Meghwal. I'm a DDF student. So my question is for both of you. Like we talked about black box, we talked about like explainability. Can you throw more light, like how can we treat our AI which is more explainable? Because we are in research domain. If AI is not explaining how it is doing things, it is sort of not, we can't trust on it. So can you just throw some light on it?
I think again, like the couple of the prompting techniques that I shared is you want it to give you the output in those specific formats. So you have to instruct it to give its thinking process back to you, right? So that's the most simplest way to do it. Second, or you want to go deeper, is then have it fine tuned on specific data sets. So you know if you're expecting certain a certain way or format for it to respond or to do its certain tasks, then the most trusted way is, given that there are several open models, you can fine tune them on specific data sets, that this is how certain tasks are done, this is how they should be done rather, and this is how you should act upon. So once you fine tune it, it ensures that it is following that instruction again and again. uh, uh, Another simpler way also to do it is play around with the system prompt itself to give it specific outputs. The most complex way would be to then go and build a custom model on top of it.
Yes. So great answer, Abhijit. You covered most of it. So one of the things that we also need to ensure is, see, how do I move from being just using LLMs to just simply give the data, all of the data to LLMs, put layers in between, in terms of, I mentioned about removing PII data or any data that I want. So I have to, apart from doing that or cleaning the data or making sure my data governance is there, you can use this data only for this particular piece. So a lot of LLMs today, even on the paid versions, once I get onto a paid version, is they have an option of do not use this data for training. So that's one area where you make sure that when you're especially working with some sensitive data, you discontinue that, so that it's not using that data for future training or any one of these. Still, it is still a black box. I have no idea whether it will do it or not. It can still do it, but I am at least taking one preventive step over there. Second, as you mentioned, while I'm getting the LLM to focus, or I'm getting AI to focus on specific use cases, training definitely helps. Vectorization is where I'm saying that you can only do these things, but you also, and it's important that we tell AI, you cannot do these things. You're not supposed to do this particular one. Don't share this data. Don't go outside this deviation. Use or give me only facts and focus on the facts. However, you can then use another AI agent, or so N8N makes a lot of these workflows much easier, where I'm using one workflow to extract data or research data. I'm using another workflow to validate this data. Does this work in the real world or not? And then I'm using a third workflow to summarize or contain all of the validated data only. So that's where I'm, accelerating this entire journey, in terms of one agent is only doing research, another agent is making sure that this check is happening. So maker checker
Yes.
is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm putting that entirely in my workflows, right? It doesn't work, yes, in our regular simple prompt kind of use cases where I'm working with this. I can customize it, but then, as you mentioned, there are a lot of platforms today that are available like N8N, LangChain. If I'm more technical, I can get into different areas, but N8N does a lot of these workflows where I can simply say one agent will only do research, another agent will only do this. And then I can have a fifth agent that once everything is done, goes and verifies and validates everything all over again. That whatever I have put, is it meeting my markdown structures? Is it meeting my thesis parameters? Is it meeting all of these things? And I have code it and program it once. Then it does it every time that I running that entire workflow.
And in these systems have now become sorts of black box. So even the creators are not able to say that, how how does the LLM think, right? So you cannot go at the root of it to really understand, but you can try to prompt it or modify its behavior to really extract, because these systems have now become in certain ways autonomous in terms of their thinking, because of the complexity also that they've been built. So they are black boxes fundamentally, like, which is their nature right now. So you cannot go to the extreme depth of it, but you can try to at least get the surface level thought process on how it's executing tasks.
In a way, in a way, what both the speakers, if I put it, reword it, the fundamental philosophy of verification and validation still holds good, even for this also. Okay, and once you have got the say some answer, see how do you verify or how do you validate is again the thing is like that. For example, as both the speakers have highlighted, what they have told is that use it for the benefit, not use it as a shortcut. Use it for the learning. And once you know that, okay, this is the answer which has been given by AI to me, now you are experienced enough that what the steps it is involved of. And then you now, as they have nicely explained, break down in the simple steps and find out the answer for only for that step, and then verify whether this is applicable or not. One typical example I will give you is just some time back we were studying one reaction. Okay. Now, out of for that reaction, it says I want to just understand whether this is feasible or not, or which type of reactor is applicable for that. If I ask you that this is the type of the reactor which is applicable for that, it will give me, okay, so this is there. Now, how to verify that? I know some kinetics is behind that. Let me ask the specific questions on the kinetics. And when it goes to the kinetics, what it does is it collects all the published data. Some researchers have done in this domain, some researchers have done in this domain, some researchers have done in this domain. Then you collect that data. It takes you to that references. Then based on the regression analysis, it gives you some sort of, okay, this is the reaction kinetics, how it behaves. And that is what probably both the speakers, they mean that this is where you can validate.
So Abhijit also mentioned about how do we prioritize or leverage or train people to use AI within the organization, right? So the whole point is, don't just simply ask the query and take it output and then validate it. The whole idea is in terms of you are brainstorming along with the AI. In terms of, so you spend a good amount of time planning. So technology is only a 10-20% of this entire piece. I need to be able to plan in advance. I need to be able to say that, okay, this is what I want. I need to give the context. I need to say this is what you need to work within. Brainstorm saying that these are the three reactions. I saw that this reaction is probably not working. Is it going to work in the same way or is it going to have a different reaction? Go check against all of these additional databases, do that research and come back to me whether it works or not. And what is the thesis that you are going to come up with, right? Of course, don't prompt it in such a way that you will only get one answer. It has to be an open-ended one where I am saying or how I am comparing, or we are having this discussion right now. It has to be, okay, what if I do this? What if I do that? Those discussions should be first happening, because that context is what AI is building. Because the minute I say, if I give in the same example that he quoted, I give a very open-ended one. These are the three reactions I saw, and give me your feedback. It may go in a completely different tangent. But the minute he said this could be probably because of a kinetic connection, I'm tying or asking it to focus on that particular area, or I know that it is because of this. Go deeper here, right? So that's where I'm building the additional connections. After it has done the research, that's when I then tell AI, now go ahead and summarize this entire piece for me, along with the citations, the quotations, whatever else that is there required. Okay. So the minute I say cite it, it has to double check.
Even those get hallucinated.
Even those get hallucinated. But then I'm asking somebody else to go and double check, right? So that's where it is.
Sir, my second question is like you said like India has like 38,000 GPU we have achieved until up till now, and you said we have to achieve more. What is the exact specification? Like because GPU is in every system right now. So when we say 38,000, like what specification we are talking about?
Okay, these are GPUs that have been procured by the government. There are a lot of GPUs that have been procured by the private sector as well, right? So what I was talking about is the India AI mission, where India is procuring all of these GPUs. Now GPUs, all of them have different processing power. So it's not like I need only this one GPU and this one GPU will do all of these things, because the GPUs are being utilized for both. Uh, where even for somebody like you can get, say, at 100 rupees an hour, it gives you a certain amount of processing. 50 rupees an hour will get you a certain amount of processing, and you can go up to 1,000 rupees an hour, which will give you different level of processing, which is much faster or can take care of huge data sets that you need to run, right?
It's a mixture of H100, other ones as well. So again, I don't have specific background like numbers on it, but these are all the H100, A100s, and
These are the most common ones.
those family applications, like those family GPUs.
Those are the cheaper ones and the most common ones. Then you have Blackwell and you have all of these other, if you've been following Nvidia. And Nvidia is not the only one that's making it. There are other companies also that are making it. So these are just numbers in terms of where the government is trying to be. The idea was to showcase the amount of infrastructure that's going to be required, because the minute now all of you start using that, there is rest of India as well who has the capability or wants to be able to use it. Because the example that he quoted, if somebody sitting in Nagpur in a small farm, daily wage laborer wants to have access to that, that's what the government is trying to enable. In terms of being able to use the kind of infrastructure that somebody sitting in Silicon Valley has access to, that same infrastructure that this farmer son wants to be able to have. And if he can get that, then imagine the kind of progress that India can make.
There is one online query from YouTube. It is there on the.
I think that's more of an observation. Yes,
there has to be
definitely.
close symbiosis between the data production and data consumers.
Absolutely, there has to be a close symbiosis, without which we can't, because we are living in a world of data and technology. And if both are not on the same platform, it becomes a very, what we are already facing right now. Research doesn't always convert into a business idea, and business ideas work on very different boring use cases, which, how can I automate the silliest kind of work which is there? So I need to be able to do this, because here I'm innovating, here I'm automating some of the dumbest work that is to be there. So and that's where I'm making money. I'm not making money on innovations, but I have to spend a lot of money on innovation so that I can dumb down certain ideas. So definitely there has to be that connect. There has to be an industry, and that's what I think the government is also trying to bridge to a good extent. But yes, there has to be a lot more.
Yeah, rephrase. We discussed that the unit economics has to be justified for any technology to scale.
Yes.
UPI is a prime example, right? For AI to democratize unit economics, it cannot buy in dollars and sell in rupees, right? So India stack is essential. India AI is essential. To achieve that, do you have any thought leaders speaking about like we have democratized music? It's used in a lot of social media platforms, so that the royalty goes back to the music generators or the studios, right? Because individually the piracy used to happen. Now it is giving the money in the hands of the actual stakeholders who have produced it, who have effort it. Is there anything so that the data generators or the sandbox owners, uh, multiple AI agentic creators come together, they have their own data sets, and whenever their data set is used or their libraries are used, they get some revenue out of that. That kind of collaboration, I'm not sure whether how it works, but
That's a little. Whoever owns the data is actually going to make the data. Right now, depending on the kind of libraries that you are able to create, you would eventually probably, yes, make some money on top of it. In terms of licensing data sets, so for example, Reuters has the biggest data set of all of the financial transactions in the world. And that's what now government, if you see AI Kosh and the other one, the Mosby example that I gave, government is democratizing that, because if I can have access to all of India's database of all the learnings that are there, my geological data, my companies data, all of these data sets that are available, my economic data, how socio-economic data that's available, if I can leverage that, and that's what the government is making free, right? So it's already free, it's available. That's what I just spoke about.
So
Yes.
this is just like this, whatever was the economic survey, etc., whatever government collects through.
Yes.
NHS. So
So
same
all of that
now
data is
digitized.
available. Yes, that data is available for you to research on. But if you are now creating customized paper, right? For example, from education perspective or from a sales perspective, I have data of all the researchers that are in India who are doing any kind of research, and all their topics are collated in one place. That's something that I could monetize on, probably, as in, or some research. I'm sure you'll have a lot more ideas.
I have a specific answer to that. So one is the open source community thankfully has been doing a phenomenal job of democratizing this already. So the moment that many of these bigger companies release their LLMs, thankfully Meta was one that did an open source work. OpenAI, Anthropic are still closed door ones. And then once Meta started doing open source, a lot of other smaller models came across. And now I think there's one discussion that I was in which shared that there are some 4,300 AI models that are available out there. Majority, thankfully, of them are open source. So where you don't need to pay anything, right? You can just download it from Hugging Face and you can start using it. A lot of these data sets are also available for free on Hugging Face. One experiment that I've been doing personally in the last week as well with respect to our work is when you want true democratization is how do you make it available for free or as cheap as possible to the end customer. What we're trying to do right now is enable an edge models to run on devices. So we took a 500 million model and ran it on a 2 GB phone, and it was running fairly well. So now I'm able to give a completely offline intelligence in the hands of anyone uh, resource constrained environment, and they don't need to be even connected to an internet or have a high end phone. I can run that on device for them, and that is what true democratization looks like. Now if I have specific data sets, so again, because I'm giving this example because I come from the education background, and that is where uh, we're looking at it. So you can talk about health, education, multiple of these areas, right? In terms of education, then given a lot of these data sets are available, and what we are also doing alongside that is we have the Swayam content that is available. So we have procured that content with one of our academic partners, and we are building specific data sets on each of these subjects. So now I can have one small LLM per subject available for a student to consume, which does not require any internet. It requires one time model download, which is some 400-500 MB or 1 GB at a time, and then I can use it for free on my device without. So that is what true democratization is, and which is where a lot of this data is available. And the open source community is doing phenomenal job in making this available for everyone.
Yeah,
And
but
that-
that's supposed to
Yeah.
that's a but in you are in offline you can do. But then the data there, what we're accessing, they are just keeping it downloaded in that day or what?
Yes. So the data, the model is fine tuned on that data, which is inside their phone itself. So they don't need any internet connectivity. And then again, if you want to update, you can, like you do a software update once in a while.
Yes. So this is what he's talking about is now starting to move from the what I was also talking about, edge devices, right? So edge computing. where I'm moving from LLMs to SLMs. So these are smaller language models which are running on devices itself, which are pre-trained on certain pieces. So he's talking about education. If I were to talk of India use cases, I can do this where all the medical use cases or medical history of all the patients that is there for all the kind of disease profiles that are relevant to a certain doctor or medical profession is all pre-trained and kept, right? For you, it could be everything that is there with atomic research, all kinds of stuff. It is pre-trained and kept on that particular area. And it is running in an air-gapped server or a small phone or device as well, where these devices don't coordinate or work with the real world or internet. They are working in your area in a small segment, and they are focused specifically to the use case that you have trained it on.
Yes, in this case, the classical example is this Cancer Mitra developed by these people, and this entire cancer grid is precisely based on this principle. Entire patient history, everything is there on this, and that data is available to specialists all around India. And what they have done is, the novel thing is, for example, even in the smaller areas where you don't have cancer experts, some doctor there, he or she can upload the history, and then he can get connected throughout India.
Yes.
And they can prescribe the what is this should be the specific line of treatment for this patient. They can do the online this
So when I was talking about security, this is exactly what I was saying, that you can upload all of this data, but I don't need to know that Ankush is suffering from cancer and stays in this particular region. This is the kind of disease profile that he carries, right? So that's the data cleaning that I need to do to ensure that my privacy is taken care of. But I want to be able to leverage some of the best world use cases so that my X-ray and my disease profile, once it is uploaded, automatically I don't even need a very trained doctor in a small remote village. The minute he uploads all of this stuff, automatically it can detect. And today these detections are equivalent or better than some of the human detection that is available, and they are getting better.
Yeah, otherwise at least they can give you the primary diagnosis. Okay, this is now that can be verified by some trained doctor.
A lot of this work is also done by research like labs like these, individuals, communities that are, one is, let's say, there are hospitals that are giving let's say x-ray data, chest x-ray data that has been uploaded. There is one group that is doing all the data labeling. There's one group that is doing the training. There is one group that is doing the modeling of it. So, and this is where students also come and can contribute. And this is like, given all of you are in the research domain, again, here is, that is one of the best value propositions that you can say that, okay, my thesis work is also contributing to some real world use case, right? And advancing a specific vertical that can have a real world application. So there are, again, these chest x-rays, people are doing dental work, a lot of other things. So you can pick and choose what's specific to your domain and then build on top of it.
Yeah, basically what's happening is Wikipediaization of this
Exactly,
entire piece,
LLMs. Exactly.
right? Everybody is contributing and improving that entire data set. So that's where it goes.
I have two specific questions to just for because both of you are here and being an educational institute. I have just one comment and two questions I will ask. The first comment is means in the sense that I fully agree that if you look at the internet or the AI, that has played a big role in democratization of the education. And one typical example which I like and I give several times I can think of is, for example, earlier if you look at the IITs, the elite institutes, they were primarily for the one who are resourceful. Typically, gentlemen, if you look at the graduates which to come from IITs and whatever technology or education institutes, they used to be from metro cities or the at least tier 2 cities because the resources were available there on. Now with this internet, as you have seen told in your presentation nicely, that during the pandemic, because of this internet and because of this AI, it has now penetrated even to the 3-tier cities and not even to 3-tier cities, to the remote villages. And now you will see the one of the transformation is that nowadays every day you will find one or two news. Okay, the son or the daughter of a laborer or the son or the daughter of a farmer, he secured a place in IITs. So that is one thing. Now, second thing, what I want to take in further this, though I know that people will be waiting for lunch also, but just one quick question I want to know from you that being an education institute, what or how we can make this AI more adaptive in our curriculum so that it becomes beneficial for the student also and for the AI community also. If you can give us something because you are from educational background and Ankush is also at
somewhere in between.
Yes.
Yes,
So
you
anyway, just two quick.
No, absolutely. So again, like I'll just repeat what I shared a couple of days back, because I was talking to a group of teachers as well. Say, again, as I said, sadly, with the research community, we are stopping people from using AI, which should not be the case. How do you use AI better in our workflows? That is the core goal. So even as professors or faculty, how do I enhance my teaching and learning capability? A very simple thing that becomes that uh, that AI has now made it possible is to ask dumb questions, right? पहले हम क्लास में बैठते थे और and any one of us, it happened with me on both sides, is if I ask a simple question, my professor or my colleague will say, अरे यार तेरे को इतना भी नहीं आता है.
Fear of that
There's a-
ridicule me.
Exactly. But now with AI, I'm able to ask those questions. So one is if removing that fear in some ways. Second is how do you augment yourself with AI? So a simple thing that you can do even today is if you have a chat GPT subscription, you can create these custom GPTs. Yeah, even for free versions, you have these Notebook LM now available with Google, where you can upload all your reference material, आपके जो भी किताबें हैं, मतलब and I think I'm between the both the ends of the faculty and the students. So आप लोगों ने बहुत सारी किताबें पढ़ी है, हमने थोड़ी बहुत पढ़ी है, शायद the new generation is not reading at all, right? So how do you ensure that they are able to do that? Is they are on these chat interfaces. So if we can get that available in the interface that they want. So Notebook LM is one amazing tool कि जहाँ पे आपका जितना मटेरियल है आप उसमें डाल दो, let the students chat on top of it. Ki I can ask questions, I can ask, so that they have the wealth of information that you also have accessible in their own way and format. And for again, from the student standpoint also is, मैंने ये prompt दे दिया, okay, do this for me and get that output. Am I verifying that? That should be my starting point. It needs to be my brainstorming buddy, right? Ki how do I use that? जो generally when you start your vehicle in the winter, जो cold start problem होता है, okay, I want to start thinking about this, but where should I kickstart? Where should I go ahead? AI helps you get that kickstart, that cold start problem solved. That I can start thinking I have a base to do. I can create beautiful presentations using AI, but that should not be the final presentation that I submit. That should be the first goal. Okay, help me build a structure of my presentation. Now I add on top of it. At least it has given me where I can begin, right? It has concentrated. It is beautiful at doing these analytical tasks. So if I can use it in that way and then add on top of it, it should not be the final output that I use as AI. It should be the starting piece of my workflow. So those are few things.
Ethical use of AI.
Ethical and more positive. Like it needs to be an assistant to you. It, yes.
So, I, exactly as an assistant, and I've also been encouraging teachers to use AI because the exact use case that you mentioned, right?
Co-pilot rather.
Co-pilot, yes. Because what happens is, see, a lot of times the exact use case as a student, every student is not the same. Some have learning disabilities, some have learn at a different pace, some are audio, some are visual, some need kinetic. So each student now has the capability to learn in their own way for the same concepts, right? So that's something that allows a lot of students to catch up, and for us as trainers or educationalists to also give to the students in the way that appeals to them. Because the minute I come here, five people will tune out because they are not visual people, or they're not, they're kinesthetic people, and until they don't see something or read something, feel something, they're not going to be able to absorb whatever I'm saying. So that is a significant impact that goes on. Second, of course, is how we are leveraging all of this, because um, and I've been telling, we all have capstone projects, we have education projects that people need to do internships or projects. The minute they start, and what usually has been happening in the Indian ecosystem is, these are the list of 5 projects that you need to do, copy paste, or there's a ready project available on the internet, download it and put it. We need to start coming up with more creative projects that we give to the children, and they need to come up with creative ways that they're doing, which I can implement in the existing ecosystem itself. The easiest one, of course, I work with a lot of IT engineering colleges. Everybody gets to do create a library project, create a whole application for library management, travel management. ये 4 या 5 standard projects that get done, and those library management is not even implemented in the college that they are asking it to do it for. So why don't you implement it or make the students implement it for your library? Why don't you make it attendance management that the students are implementing? So they are getting real world use cases, which is also improving the college infrastructure. The college is not even using whatever the students are doing. It's just as a ye marks ho gaye and pass it on. Come up with better projects that we are giving. You can use ChatGPT for that. Otherwise, the faculty is also just simply you know जो इधर से सीखा या उसी को इधर इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहा है. तुम्हारा ये टॉपिक है, ये बुक पढ़ के आ जाओ, इसका असाइनमेंट लिखो, वॉमिट इट आउट एंड क्लोज इट. So those are areas where we can optimize or make sure that yes, how can I improve my ecosystem and leverage the students, because the students are getting real world experience, because they're working with only trained data sets, so they're downloading something from the internet and implementing that. If I can make sure that this thing is done, they are getting real world experience, which is converting into benefits for both.
There's also one tool I yeah, Elicit AI, where you can find specific papers and it can do a high level literature survey and research on top of it. So again, the way I would take a month to read 30 papers or 2 months to do that, I can do that in at least 30-40 minutes, the initial level of it. If, how do I find a research gap in this, right? Or if I found,
You can some guidelines.
again, it gives you a starting point.
It can shortlist also. Which one do I start with first?
That is also one another very important thing you can use it.
Literature survey.
Yes.
That is the, again, I know it's a most troublesome part of it. Again, you can just put up a topic. It will list you out all the papers that are
But
filtered.
this is open source or this is open, not
It is open. There are free and paid plans both. Again, there are limitations. Ki free mein you can.
free is
Yeah, but it is specific for literature survey.
but
Like
this is like
literature
app mode or this is like an
website.
Yes.
website?
So there
Website.
there is one app
Yes,
that I
website.
had also done, which does all of the technical research for you.
Yes.
So this is created by an Indian only, he's sitting in Silicon Valley. You don't have the name, but once I have it, I'll send it across to you, because that does entire technical research, goes through all the technical papers, and comes up with they've guardrailed some of these other pieces as well.
No, there are. That's what I'm saying. So another way to also use these is ask it ki which what other tools are available.
That's right. That's also
Already this what this discuss with during the lunch.
yeah, that's okay, fine. No.
So this was the talk on building indigenous AI solution for economic and social growth, organized by HBNI in association with ICC and AIC Anushakti Nagar. Let's thank both the speaker, Shri Ankush Shah and Shri Abhijit Khandagale. We also thanks AIC Anushakti Nagar. Shri Adesh Surya Rao is there with us to coordinate with us for the speakers and for this lecture. And now I kindly request Professor Deepanvita Datta Madam to offer a small token of respect to Ankush Shah.
This can give to him.
I kindly request Shri Adesh Sira Rao, please, to pay the token of respect to our second speaker. Once again, thanks to both the speakers, the participants, students present online and offline. There are approximately 25 offline students were present, and many more students will view this on YouTube. And if the queries comes, we kindly request both the speakers to respond so that our students get benefited from your insightful talk. And with this, I thank once again to AI Anushakti Nagar and HBNI, our senior colleague, and the students, and particularly to our both the speakers. And thank you very much. And with this, we conclude this talk today. Thank you.